Hey, a series win for the Seattle Mariners. It is still possible. They finally win a game on Friday, and then today they win their first series in 2 weeks, literally from that Sunday night baseball game. What is up? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back and welcome into the Seattle Mariners post-game recap. Mariners defeat the Giants today 4-3. They take 2 out of 3 from the San Francisco Giants. Houston wins tonight, so they will remain 4.5 back in the American League West. Before I dive any further, as always, hit that like button, helps out the channel tremendously. Comment your thoughts down below. And if you're new or lurking, go and hit that sub button. I'm 10 subs away from 4,100. Thank you again for all the support. Channel members, the next video in my top 10 baseball movies of all time will be out Thursday on the off day. I was going to do it on the last off day, but that was the day Scott was fired, so just didn't have a chance to get that video up. But it'll be up next Thursday. And also, other people think about becoming channel members. We do streams every now and then, giveaways, and I'm doing a series right now, my top 10 baseball movies of all time. I've done number 10 and number 9. Number 8 will be out Thursday. Listen, much better, right? Like, there's still a lot of frustrating aspects with this team. They didn't play perfect today. This is still a team that has blown a 10-game lead in the division, so I'm not going to sit here and go sunshine, rainbows, lollipops, but a nice series win, and just good to see the team winning again. No matter what our frustrations are, it is nice to see the team winning some ball games. Good to see Dan Wilson win the series in his first series as Mariners manager. And better effort this weekend, for sure. I thought some better at-bats. Now Blake Snell, Robbie Ray, Birdsong all got a little wild, can all get a little wild. That probably played a part in it. And again, the offense, still not good. Listen, the offense isn't good, right? There's 31 games left, or 32. This is not a good offense. The hope is just they have a hot streak left in them, and they can maybe go on a run here. That's really it. I don't know if I said that yesterday. I recorded the video a couple times, but at this point, and that's why I'm just not as angry. It's kind of gotten past that point because they just are who they are. You just hope there's a hot streak in there. You hope Julio has a 10, 12 game stretch where you can't get him out. Cal has one more of those Cal Raleigh hot streaks. Randy gets hot for a little bit. Dylan Moore is super streaky. Maybe he has one more in him. Maybe Mitch Garver at some point runs into a couple more. You just kind of hope that that's what happens here because we know this is not a good offense at this point. We have 134 whatever game sample size of this, but you just hope it can get better down the stretch. And this was a start, right? You made up one game over these 3 against Houston. If you can kind of do that each series, you're going to have a shot at this. And as I've said, kind of, hope against hope since that brutal road trip. Try to get to that Houston series 1, 2, 2.5 games back. I don't know where they'll be in terms of a half game or not at that point. And you'll have a shot. And that is still doable. Houston's got a tough series coming up in Philly. You've got Tampa at home, then the Angels and A's. The Mariners have lost to plenty of teams that are not performing well, so I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you to get all upbeat that this is going to happen, but there is a shot, right? And that's all you can hope for. And today was better baseball for sure, and a good series overall, and a fun series. 3 pretty competitive games. All three teams, yeah, 3-team head-to-head matchup. Both teams could probably claim they should have won all 3 at some point. Giants probably feel like they should have won game 1. Mariners certainly had chances to win yesterday, and both teams had chances to win this one today. It's the Mariners that come out ahead. Bryan Woo just continues to be fantastic. I am really getting to a point where Bryan Woo is, first of all, he's probably my favorite pitcher to watch in this rotation. I find him very visually appealing in terms of his delivery. It's very smooth, very easy, throws a ton of strikes. That's all. And all the Mariners starters throw strikes, but certainly, we've all sat through some pitchers that nibble and walk a lot of guys. Gilmesh, Miguel Batista. I remember those guys who would just nibble. So frustrating. So it's very nice to watch pitchers just attack the strike zone. Bryan Woo does that. He gets swing and miss, keeps the ball on the ground, doesn't give up any hard hits. Ramos got him for the home run, but it's going to happen. Ramos is a great hitter. Woo's been exceptional, and now he's going deep into games, right? That was the one bugaboo. We all liked Bryan Woo and thought he was really good, but he just couldn't get past that 4th, 5th inning for this team. And it was super frustrating, right? Because we knew the potential in there. And I'm not even blaming, Mariners management here for any of that they're trying to be careful. This is somebody that's had an injury history and has missed time even this season. So you got to be super careful. But the protective gloves, whatever you want to call it, finally started to come off. And he's going deep into these games now, 7 innings again today for Bryan Woo, which is great because right now the bullpen's a little bit messy, right? Without Garcia, without Santos, without Brash, with, not having Spire and Saucedo on their games. It's really Snyder, Munoz, Voth are really the only guys that you're really, and Chargois is good too, but it's just not as deep as you hoped it would be at this point in the season. So just really great to see Bryan Woo getting the same results, but going deep into the games as well. So tremendous outing from Bryan Woo. And I mean, I feel like I've said this about every Mariners pitcher at some point, but man, you could make a case for Bryan Woo in game one if there is a game one of any type. Now, if the Mariners do get to a game one of a series, I doubt they'll be able to set their rotation because it'll probably come down to the very end, and certainly not something we should really be even talking about right now. But you could make a strong case for going to Bryan Woo, especially if he's healthy and on his game. He has been absolutely tremendous and really a joy to watch. Watching him pitch in LA was great, and then does a great job today for the Mariners and helps him get a big series win. We'll go ahead and dive in the box score a little bit here. Woo, 7 innings, 4 hits, 2-run, 1 earned, no walks, 7 strikeouts, lowers his ERA to 2.05, does get the win, 6-2 on the season. The only 1 earned run because there was the error on Fitzgerald to reach base, the first batter of the game, on Rojas's error. And then Ramos took Woo deep, so only the 1 earned run. Then he settled in. It was fantastic. He gave up the base hit, I want to say, to Yastrzemski in the 7th inning. Let me pull it up here. I want to make sure I have it right. In the top of the 7th, he gave up the hit to, Mike Yastrzemski, and they let him stay in to face Estrada. I thought Dan made the right call there, leaving him in, let him try to get through it. That might have been a case where Scott would have gone to the bullpen. And I promise not every game I'm going to really not try to just compare everything Dan does to Scott. But I thought that was good of Dan to leave him in there, let him get to that 7th inning, did a good job there, and Woo rewarded him with the out. Snyder did the same in the 8th. Snyder pitches the 8th, not his best inning, walks 2, gives up the home run to, who was hit the home run? McRae. Walks Lamont Wade Jr. He walked Chapman to lead off the inning, I believe. No, he walked, McRae. Let me pull up the box score again here too. It was McRae hit the home run, then he walked Canna, struck out Fitzgerald, walked Lamont Wade, got Ramos to strike out, and got Conforto to ground out. Another situation where, what have we talked about, right? Scott was just not pushing the right buttons in situations. Agree or disagree with this what Scott did to manage it. I don't think every decision he made was wrong. It never is. But it seemed like every time he'd go, I'm going to go the reliever here, but the reliever give up runs. I'm going to leave the starter in here, the starter would give up runs. Now, for us, it's hard, right? We're not in the dugout. We're not in the clubhouse. We don't have that feel for what each guy's going through. We may think a decision is correct. I've defended Scott on some of these decisions, but you have to have a feel for your guys. Now, listen, sometimes, players got to play. Sometimes they're just going to make mistakes and mess up. You can put, prime Barry Bonds pinch hitting for, Samad Taylor, and there's scenarios where Taylor's going to get a hit and Bonds is going to strike out. You know what I mean? Like, baseball's random at times, so there's nothing you can do at times, but you have to have that feel for each situation. And I know it's been 3 games, but it really feels like Dan Wilson has a better feel for these things than Scott did. He's pushed the right buttons, leaving Colin Snyder in. I personally was like, I think you go to Munoz to face Ramos in that situation in the 8th. And I don't think it would have been wrong to go to Munoz there. I really don't. That's a big situation. It's the Giants' best hitter, and you're going to your best reliever. But Dan kind of talked about it after the game, allowing Munoz to come out and have a fresh inning versus getting those outs, sitting in the dugout for 15, 20 minutes, and then having to come back out and get 3 more outs against the Giants lineup. So, obviously sometimes there's situations where you just don't have a choice and you need to go to Munoz in that spot. But if you have faith in Snyder that he can do it, he gets out of it, Munoz gets the fresh inning. So now you probably have Munoz available tomorrow. Snyder might be down, but you've also, I guarantee you Snyder's going to feel pretty good about Dan showing faith in him there. So his confidence is going to be boosted, and the teams in general, right? And I think that was one of the issues too, is that when Scott's hitting the wrong buttons, like I've said in those situations, you lose your team's confidence. Again, not all his fault. It's not. Players have to play. Snyder still has to get those outs. If you go to Munoz, he still has to pitch and get the outs. Munoz pitches a 9th. He goes up a 2-run home run. Nothing Scott, Dan, anybody can do there. But you do want to make sure that your guys are believing in you. And I think they probably lost a little bit of faith in Scott as well. And I think so far, Dan, through 3 games, whether you agree or disagree, he's pushed the right buttons so far, in my opinion. And again, like I said, I don't think going to Munoz would have been wrong, but Dan stuck with Snyder and was rewarded for it. So not Snyder's best outing, but you're not always going to have your best stuff. And Snyder's been lights out now for a handful of months. Got himself a little bit of trouble, worked out of him. You show a little character, you show a little moxie when you do things like that. And then Munoz with a pretty, actually, no, not really a clean ninth inning because Chapman leads off with a walk in the 9th inning. Then you have Yastrzemski struck out, Estrada grounded out, Chapman to second, walks McRae, and then he does get Canada to strike out swinging. So I'd like to see Munoz get those walks down a little bit. It's kind of been a bit of a problem for him. Now, Munoz is so good that he can afford to do that a little bit because the stuff is so unhittable at times that Munoz walking guy is far from the worst thing ever. But man, if he could just get that down a little bit, it's not like a major issue, but it's definitely probably been the one bugaboo against Munoz this year. Is a little too much on the free passes, but locks it down and seals a win for the Mariners. Offensively, they faced old friend Robbie Ray, who had the hamstring injury. Hope Robbie's okay. I liked Robbie Ray when he was here. I thought he got a little too much hate because of what happened in the playoff series. He was actually a really good pitcher in 22. I think some of it, fans had a little unfair expectations because he'd won the Cy Young and expected him to be an ace. He's not. He's more of a number 2, in my opinion. Hard to say right now because he's coming off the injury, but in his peak, I thought he was more of a number 2. And people forget before Castillo was acquired in 22, Ray went on a really nice stretch for a couple months where he was lights out. And I thought down the stretch last season, they really missed Robbie Ray. They had, lineups that they faced that were very left-handed heavy. Had they gotten to the playoffs, they would have probably faced the Twins, which is a team that would have been great to have Robbie against. We saw Woo and Miller slow down at the end of last season. I thought it would have been great to have Robbie Ray. Nothing he could do at the Tommy John, but I liked Robbie Ray when he was here. I don't have any ill will towards Robbie at all. It certainly would have been nice to get an out in the playoffs, but I'm not going to relive that. But he lives with the hamstring injury. Dylan Moore 1 for 2 with 2 walks and 3 stolen bases. That's kind of what you want from Dylan Moore. Guy that's got occasional pop, can show some patience, draw some walks, and wreak some havoc on the base pass. Mariners have been much more aggressive running since Dan's taken over. I don't know if that's so much just a Dan Wilson philosophy as it is just Robbie Ray's kind of slower to the plate, more deliberate. So is Blake Snell. So it might just be that they're taking advantage of pitchers that are a little bit slower, like the Mariners pitchers. The Mariners pitchers really struggle at holding runners on. So sometimes it's just a matter of that as well, and you make those decisions to run. But Dylan Moore certainly had an impact today. Tough day for Julio. 0 for 4 did have the RBI ground out that tied the game. Mariners runs certainly weren't scored on a lot of long balls, but you get walks, you get on base, good things can happen. And that's why you continue to do it, right? If you can get on base, even ground ball double plays like Mitch Haniger's can score a run. Julio's little dinky grounder, which was that close to a double play, can score a run. You'd certainly prefer balls into the gaps to really break these games open. But at least it's something, right? It's better to put a run across than 0 for sure. Cal was 1 for 4, a nice RBI single in the first. Thought that was actually a big run for the Mariners. Getting down 2-0, getting themselves in a little early hole. Feels like they've been in a lot of early holes recently. They had the runner at third with less than 2 outs, which is felt like a bugaboo for this team all season. And Cal delivered a big base hit, which brought a run in. I think maybe calmed them down a little bit. Keeps it to 1 run. You're just a blast away from tying the game. So good job there by Cal. Rosarino 1 for 2 with the base hit. I think he was hit twice again today. So on base 3 times. I think his WRC plus with the Mariners has been over 100. I think it's been really elevated by some hit by pitches. Someone's got to carry the mantle for Ty France, I guess. A nice game for Justin Turner. A couple base hits right back up the middle, 2 for 4. Polanco 0 for 3. Haniger 0 for 3 at the walk. It wasn't an RBI, but did have the ground out in the double play with the bases lower, nobody out. Scored a run. That's obviously not what you're looking for in that situation, but it gave the Mariners the lead. Certainly better than 3 straight strikeouts, which we've seen this team do, so we'll take it. Josh Rojas, a nice game, actually. 2 for 3 with the RBI and the walk. Wasn't in the lineup originally. Luke Raley was scratched. I guess Dan said some flu-like symptoms, so which stinks for Luke. I'm sure he's hurting right now, but not an injury at least, so that's good news. Nice game for Rojas and going against lefties as well. Got the hit off Rogers. That was a big run that Rojas brought home in that 6th inning. That was after the double play off the bat of Haniger. Got that second run in. When you're in those situations, you want at least 2 runs. and Rojas's base hit allowed them to get that. So nice game for Josh Rojas. Really been scuffling. I mean, truthfully, since like April, Rojas has been pretty bad, but good to see, right? This is going to be the roster the rest of the way. So, I know people, Rojas stinks, Garver. I'm not saying they don't, but this is your team. There's nothing left you can do unless there's some waiver claims. And if guys are on waivers, they're probably not very good either. So the best thing we can do is hope these guys have that final hot streak in them and they can make a run. Rivas 0 for 2. Was he hit by a pitch? I think he had a sacrifice bunt. That's why he was 0 for 2 and not 0 for 3. So good to see, though, Rivas playing every day at shortstop. So, listen, better at bats this series. Drew some walks. Again, Snell and Ray aren't exactly the most prolific strike throwers in baseball. And I'm not going to stand up here and, again, praise this offense. We know what it is. But I thought some better at bats. Now, I don't know if there's anything to do with Edgar and Dan necessarily. This could have been a series. They might have won the series with Scott, for all we know. As bad as it was getting, they were, they're eventually were going to win a series again at some point. Even the White Sox will probably win a series again at one point. Maybe we'll see. God, they're 31 and 100. Oh, rough. I can't imagine if I was having to do post-game recaps for the Sox. I shout out to anybody that does Sox videos. Honestly, in some ways, there'd almost be like a way it would be easier because I'd just be focused on prospects and guys coming up and what you have. The Mariners still feel like they're in this weird limbo a little bit, which in some ways is it's certainly less frustrating because they're a better team, but they can be tough to talk about a little bit. But yeah, so I don't know if that's necessarily like they change an approach. This has always been a team that's been patient. They draw walks, that they work the count, control the zone. We've certainly seen them let some meatballs go by, unfortunately. So it's just finding that balance, right? Because you want guys that are patient. You want to drive up pitch counts. You want to get walks. Walks are brutal on pitchers. They get their pitch count up. They get you base runners. They force you to come over the middle. The problem is the Mariners aren't doing anything with those middle pitches. You've got to balance the plate discipline with hitting, because I've seen some people even in the comments kind of debating it. A little bit comments from my videos and other people's videos. It's both, right? That the patience is not a problem. That's a good thing. You want patient hitters. You don't want to change hitters, though, either. If they're good at what they do, don't try and, I think, change them, let them be them. But there's nothing wrong with working your walks. Problem is the Mariners are getting ahead. Randy Arozarena, perfect example in the 7th inning yesterday, right? I don't have a problem with him swinging 3-0. The problem was that was a very hittable pitch that he rolled over to short on. That's the problem. And that's kind of what I'm trying to drive home with this team. It's not, the strikeouts are bad, but it's not just the strikeouts either. It's everything as a whole. The patience is fine, but when they get that 2-0 cookie, they've got to swing the bat or they've got to do damage on it, not foul it back, not roll it over. There was a pitch today, even not to pick on because one of the few good hitters on this team, but Cal, I think, had another at-bat ready to runner at third in less than 2 outs. And Ray threw him one right down the pipe, and he lined it down the left field line. I'm like, how does that ball not lift it into the outfield for at least a sac fly? It doesn't make any sense. So much of that from this team this year. That's, again, my frustration. So people asked me about the Randy at-bat yesterday. I don't mind swinging 3-0. If Randy puts one over the fence or into the gap, nobody's complaining he swung 3-0. The problem was he rolled over a very hittable pitch. And that's been the problem with this team. They get into good counts, but they don't take advantage of it. Even today, right? They did a nice job. Ray's pitch count was mounting up. They did a nice job on Snell yesterday. But they're having a lot of these outings where they chase these pitchers, but they're still giving up only 1 or 2 earned runs in the 4 innings. Then these bullpens, and listen, major league bullpens nowadays are just filled with guys throwing 97, 98, 99. There's not a lot of bad bullpens out there. There are still bullpens that aren't as good, but even the worst bullpens are still better than what you would have seen run out there 15, 20 years ago. So it's just getting barrel on ball and doing some damage that they need to do. So listen, overall, nice start to the Dan Wilson era, 2-1, back over 500. Hopefully this carries over. It'd be nice to see this team win back-to-back games. I don't think they've done that since the Mets series 2 weekends ago. So it'd certainly be nice to see them find a way to do that tomorrow. Houston's got a tough series in Philly. They're going to face Nola and Wheeler. So you hope you can gain some ground. Try to gain a game each series. Get me to September 3 back and let's see what we can do. I'm certainly not, again, like I said in our video, I'm not going to stand up here and tell you it's going to happen, but there's a shot. So, and one nice thing is too, there's nobody in between Seattle and Houston. So at least you're just trying to catch them. If you had Texas in the middle, there would be a lot tougher, but it's you and Houston. You still got 3 games against them. So if you put in your mindset that you can beat them, I'm not saying, again, a lot of Astros fans watching, I'm not predicting the Mariners going to sweep Houston. But if you look at it from that mindset, you gain a game or two the rest of the way, decent chance you're going to have the tiebreaker. It's certainly not over. Again, not optimistic necessarily about it, but the opportunity is there. See if Dan can keep the ball rolling for the boys and get a W tomorrow. That's all I've got for everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Remember to like, remember to comment, remember to hit subscribe. And as always, go Mariners. Peace.